Hey guys, Ryan the Nerd here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Bumblebee Studio Series Shockwave. This is the figure that we've been wanting for 7 years. It's been that long since the Bumblebee movie came out, and when Shockwave came on screen and we were getting Bumblebee Studio Series figures, everybody wanted a big, beefy Shockwave figure. But instead, we got the tiny little baby ever. Look how cute he is. Oh my god, he's a little core class figure. Yeah, so we got the core class figure instead of this. This should have been immediately the first thing that Hasbro decided to go with. But instead, we got tiny little baby Shockwave here, which I did really like this figure. I really did. The take mode looked absolutely horrendous. And it's basically the exact same thing, copy and paste on this guy, but it looks a lot more cohesive, I'll tell you that much. But before spoiling the entire thing, let's take a look at the box here. So the box here, on the front of the box here, you got the Studio Series logo with Shockwave looking absolutely menacing and badass. This is my favorite Shockwave live action design ever, but we'll talk more about the figure in a little bit here. On the side of the box here, you got a nice look of Shockwave looking beautiful. On the back of the box here, you got Shockwave and in his robot mode and his take mode. He also has a backdrop included, but we really don't care about the backdrops here. On the other side of the box here, you got a more zoomed out look of Shockwave with an Autobot logo on there for the classic Studio Series. And that's it for the box. So let's take a look at the actual figure. And here he is, and man, this looks fantastic. Like I said before, this is one of my favorite live-action Shockwave designs. It fits so perfectly with the Bumblebee aesthetic, and I love it. And he looks basically identical to his G1 appearance. I mean, there is some modifications here, like the these kind of shoulder pads or kind of grooves coming out here, and the large shoulder pads, and the angry eyebrow. We'll get more into that later. But everything else is basically spot on from his G1 counterpart here, from the very blocky shapes for the simplistic design, but in a modern live action way with all these mechanical detail components going on here. And I especially love the color a lot more than the core class figure here, because the core class looks like he's lost some blood and he's like pale as hell. This guy is what all doctors recommend Shockwave's looking like. Just big, purple, amazing color scheme, and I love it so much. And you may be noticing that he doesn't really look like his G1 counterpart, and that's because his arm cannon actually comes out of the box here, so you actually have to attach it separately, and I guess you can call these accessories, but not really, because it's more of a character necessity component to the figure rather than an accessory. An accessory is more like, gimmicks to actually improve the overall figure. Guess that's what this is doing, but it's more of a character piece than anything, because it basically two-handed Shockwave looks disgusting, and I want to burn it so much. But taking a look at the shoulder, oh my god, why do I keep saying shoulder cannon? The arm cannon here, got very, very nice detail. I love how big and beefy this thing looks. The different mechanical components comprised of it, like this gear here. Love the kind of gunmetal gray going on here. Even some more detail on the top of the cannon. Got these kind of like grates going on there, some pistons, and then you even got some kind of grate detail going on there as well. And then coming out to the barrels here, he's got the barrels look absolutely amazing. You got 1, 2, 3, and then even 4, because on the CGI model, this is another barrel of his gun. So he's got 4 barrels attached to one giant cannon, which looks absolutely amazing. And if you're wondering, yes, this cannon actually is in fact compatible with blast effect parts. So if you do have them, it can actually fit in there. It just kind of plugs into the tip of the barrel here. Looks absolutely amazing. So how to attach it is that you want to come to the hand here, unplug it here, and then use this ball joint here, and you want to plug it into there. And this is a great start already. Most of the time, Shockwave figures, they usually have this pin, which this figure does have, but it's not for attaching the actual cannon to his arm here. Usually most Shockwave figures, they just have this peg that slides into the groove of their hand. On this guy, it actually has a peg, and there's a slit on the arm here. So then what you want to do is that you just want to plug it in like so, and flip around there so he looks like he's facing you, and that looks absolutely amazing. But he's not complete. No, no, no. There's a little bit more to this. He's got a hose, a fantastic looking hose. Look at the detail on this thing. I wish there's a little bit more paint on here, but the fact that we actually have a great looking rubber hose that isn't a glorified slinky is amazing. For those who don't know, most Shockwave figures, official or third party, usually come with these really kind of ugly, springs, or which are basically just glorified slinkies at that point. And they look really, really ugly in my personal opinion. They don't really fit cohesively with the overall design of Shockwave. And there's a problem where they're going to rust over time, and they look way too droopy for my personal opinion. I mean, some of them look really not that bad, but I much prefer a rubber hose where it's going to hold its shape where I'm posing him, and it won't droop and it won't rust over time. And the detail on this thing actually put a lot of love into the detail of this thing, instead of just being a glorified slinky, which looks really, really awesome. And it is rubber too, so like I mentioned. So how to actually attach the hose to his gun here. So there's a little hole and there's a little plug. Then you just want to plug it in, coming around to the back, taking the other plug and putting it into the hole on the back of his shoulder here, and then just plugging it into there. It's a little bit tight, but it plugs in very, very nicely. And there you go. It's not drooping at all. It's holding its shape. I can pose this guy and it will hold the position where it's naturally going to go. And yeah, it looks really, really nice. Very, very awesome. I love this so much. I love how some people might complain about how big the cannon looks on him. From a distance, yeah, you can definitely tell that it's a little bit big, but I love how big and beefy this cannon looks. It's extremely intimidating. What's also intimidating is his size. This is a Voyager class figure, okay? And this is the concept art Megatron. This is a leader class, okay? This guy's supposed to be the biggest figure that you can buy on the market right now. This guy's a Voyager class, and they are basically meeting eye to eye right now. That is absolutely terrifying. I mean, this guy right here was $50. This guy was about $40 to $47. So the size you're getting for the price actually fits really, really well. And if you're not familiar with the size of Transformer figures, you have a life. So let's move on. So taking away Megatron here and coming back to Shockwave here. Like I said before, the mechanical detail looks absolutely amazing. I love the detail on here. From the inside of his legs here, from these different pistons and grooves and nuts and bolts. On the side of his leg there, it's also got like some of these open cavities here with some wires coming out and stuff like that. You even got some more gears and joints and stuff like that. Even when you bend the knee, there's even like a seemingly tread of where the joints would actually move when he's actually bending his arms. I don't know if that's actually supposed to be for the joint itself, because it's not actually hindering the joint at all. And the joint seems to be kind of not really affected by it at all, because this is where the joint is. So the fact is that he actually has detail on his actual knee joint. Looks absolutely amazing. More detail there. You get even some more panels going on here. You got these really big kind of boots looking thing here on his bottom of his ankles here, and then you can even see his spinal column there with some more panels covering his shoulder blades there, and you can see more of these giant shoulder pads, and this is my favorite aspect of this design here, where these things are just kind of jutting out there, which looks really, really cool, especially when you kind of get them into some really cool poses. It makes them look really intimidating. And you can even see some more copper bits there throughout the figure too, especially on the arms here and everything like that. Looks really, really nice. I really do like the chest. I love the translucent purple for the chest here, but this is going to be a hot take. I prefer my Shockwaves having a giant pair of D cups, but they kind of square down his chest area, and it actually looks really flush, but I don't know. I prefer my Shockwaves having a giant pair of hunka-balankas, you know what I'm saying? But I really do like the actual chest here, where it's actually flush with the body, because this is an actual separate panel in itself for transformation. and it looks really, really nice how flush it is to the body, so it doesn't look like it's coming undone anytime soon, and it doesn't hinder the waist swivel at all, which is fantastic. Another translucent piece here is his eye here. It actually has light piping here. You can't really see it because it's kind of weak because there's no light shining on it, but once you get a light source above his eye and it starts glowing, it looks fantastic. And the head sculpt too, I really do like the silver details on the side of his head there. I love his antenna there as well. Really do like the detail where they got some kind of grooves going on there as well. Very, very nice. And now we're starting to go into my complaints here. The first complaint, you can probably guess from me kind of focusing more on the head here, is that he got an angry eyebrow. We get it. He's an angry Decepticon, but, like, we don't need this brow telling us that he's evil, okay? Like, there's something a lot more sinister when there's just a giant yellow orb in the center of where a face should be. And it fits more in character with Shockwave, because Shockwave follows logic more than emotions. He's a completely motionless character, and he just tortures people for his own personal benefits. But having this angry eyebrow here, it just makes him more look like a cartoonish villain here. And you can also thank for the Cyberverse Bumblebee Shockwave, because this basically capitalized on the angry eyebrow here. I mean, it's a lot less prominent, but it's definitely still there. And I guess now they decide that would be a great idea. But I'm starting to warm up to it, even though that I'm not a huge fan of it, and I really just don't like it being a part of this design. It's not completely terrible. It's not that, obnoxiously, it's not obnoxiously, sticking out or anything like that. And it does look really, really cool, especially when you get it like that. It doesn't look that bad. But what I also don't like is the dry brushing here. You can see some dry brushing here, dry brushing on the thighs, and dry brushing on the chest panel here. But this is some sloppy, sloppy work. It's like whoever was dry brushing this guy died halfway. And I know terrible dry brushing. Have you seen my Womb Doom pod? My God, that is some terrible dry brushing. I know I can do better than that. But this is just terrible. I mean, I could always go and paint it myself, but I shouldn't have to customize this figure when I'm paying a multi-billion-dollar company to actually do it for me. Like, come on, guys, like, free stuff, am I right? But turns out that when you get free stuff, you get stuff like this. And it just looks really, really cheap and really, really sloppily painted. It's only on these sections here. It's not anywhere else on the figure. It's not on the cannon. It's not on the other side of the arms here. It's not anywhere. It's just on the thighs, the chest, and the shoulder pads here. But the chest actually looks a lot more subtle because it actually looks like the paint has been chipped off from the bottom here to the underside and the top side of his chest there. It looks a lot more cleaner and a lot more more cohesive than whatever the hell was going on here. But I can't fault the figure because this guy does look absolutely amazing, besides the dry brushing and the angry eyebrow, but it is accurate to the film. What's also accurate to the film is that if you come around to the side here, he's got a little Autobot logo there. And if you're wondering, why does he have an Autobot logo if he's a Decepticon? And I was talking about how evil and disturbing this guy is. Well, the CGI model for Shockwave in the Bumblebee movie, him and Soundwave are basically the same model that they used for Optimus Prime in that movie, but they just kind of tweaked some stuff, obviously, like he doesn't have this giant cannon and stuff like that. So they basically took the base of the Optimus Prime model and tweaked it to make it look like Soundwave and Shockwave. But they somehow managed to forget to remove this Autobot logo here on the CGI model, and it is an animation error. But I'm glad that they even included. They didn't have to at all, but I'm glad that they even included this on this figure, and it looks really, really nice. I really like the detail, even when it is just an animation error. And there could be a story behind this. Like, was he an Autobot before he just decided to switch sides to the Decepticons? Or did he, torture an Autobot and rip its arm off and replace it with his own? Who knows? We'll never know. But if it's coming from Shockwave, I'm going to go with the second option there. But let's take a look at the articulation here. The articulation on the head, very, very limited. It's just on a basic swivel here. He can't look up at all, and he can't look down at all. It's only just side to side. Very disappointing. Antennas don't move at all. And for the arms here, they can rotate 360 degrees. A soft ratchet joint. I love that so much. for the arms here. No bicep swivel, but for some reason the core class figure has bicep swivels, but this guy doesn't have bicep swivels for some ungodly reason. But he does have a bicep swivel. Yay, he's got a bicep swivel. Let's go, am I right? We could have easily had a bicep swivel and a ball joint at the head. That these two joints are basically necessities for Voyager and Leader class figures, in my personal opinion. They are detrimental to the actual figure. So for the arms here, like I mentioned, the bicep swivel, he does have a bend at the elbow there, a basic limited rotation at the hand here, but it is on a ball joint, but it's mostly for transformation. The fingers are not articulated at all, and he, like I said, mentioned the waist swivel. The articulation is basically the exact same thing on this arm, which I really do like that they actually used soft ratchet joints, and the joints are really, really smooth, by the way, especially when I'm getting them into like some cannon shooting poses. I don't think that later on, I'm not worried of the joints becoming loose and the arm being drooped down by the way of the cannon here. So the joints are very, very solid, so I appreciate that. For the legs here, he can kick that far and move back that far. Great range of motion for the legs here. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got a bend at the knee here, which I already mentioned before. And he's also got another swivel here. So he's got a thigh swivel and a knee swivel, or kind of a lower section of the leg here that's also on a swivel. For the feet here, he's got a hinge joint at the ankle, and he also does have a pivot. A pretty basic pivot, and it's pretty useless when you're posing this guy, but I'm glad it's there nonetheless, because if it weren't, I won't cry, but I'm also crying because they didn't include a bicep swivel and a goddamn head ball joint. It makes no sense why this guy doesn't have either of those joints. It would make posability a lot more dynamic, and it doesn't even affect the transformation at all. It wouldn't even hinder it, and which is just disappointing. But speaking of transformation, let's get into that. So first thing, what you want to do, you don't actually have to follow this step. I just do it because it just kind of gets in the way. You can perfectly transform this guy with the cannon attached to him, but I'm just going to take it off because it just kind of gets in the way and it's just kind of floppy and stuff like that. But it's not parts forming. So for those guys saying that it's parts forming, it's not. You can perfectly transform this guy with or without with the cannon on. So flip around this arm here if you got it like that. Then come in here, did the exact same thing like you're attaching the cannon here. And also you can't actually attach the cannon to this arm if you want a Michael Bay-esque look, but that's blasphemous. Get the cross. So now you have Shockwave kind of like this. Then what you want to do is that you want to flip up the arms, so he's doing a little T-pose there. Then what you want to do is that you want to come back here, and then what you want to do is that you want to rotate the arms like that, and there's a peg there, a little slot there. Tap those together, flip up the bicep there, and then what you want to do is that you want to plug the legs there, do the exact same thing on the other side, snap that into place so it's solid connection. Coming down to the legs here, coming around to the back here, you want to flip up the treads using these pin hinge joints. Very, very nice. I love the fact that they actually rotate, which is really cool. Then flip up the legs, or the feet, sorry, flip them up like that. Then coming down here, make sure that the legs are fully spread out like so. Then bend the legs like so. Do the exact same thing on the other side. And then what you want to do is that you want to pull the chest panel off and then use this hinge joint here and bring it down like so. Now, this is the part of the transformation that gets a little bit confusing because for some reason on my copy, the tab here on the underside doesn't really connect, and it kind of hinders the transformation a little bit. But what you're supposed to do is that you want to take these little pegs here, plug them into the thighs here because there's a little hole there, plug that in like so, then bringing down the chest here, and then you want to take this underside, the chest panel, and slide it into his crotch like so, kind of like that. But then you can't plug in the pegs to these holes there because it's way too far down. And you can, but you're gonna break the goddamn thing. So Personally, what I do is that I just plug it in and then just kind of leave it like that so it can still plug in. But the instructions say that you're supposed to actually do that, but for some reason this figure doesn't want to do that, and I hope it's just my copy and not others. But yeah, it's whatever. It's just kind of a weird thing that just kind of happens with quality control issues, I guess. And then taking up this hinge joint here, flipping it up like so, and then there's a hinge joint at its neck, and then bring that down so his head is facing inward to himself. Then when you want to bring back the shoulder cannon here, why do I keep saying shoulder cannon? The arm cannon, flip up this peg that I mentioned earlier. Then you want to extend the barrel like so, and then flip this all the way down. And then this peg is going to slide into that hole on the top there. Flip it up like so. Taking the hose, coming all the way around and plugging it into the hole where it was in robot mode, making sure that the arms are out of the way, and then plugging it in like so. And there you have Shockwave in his tank mode. And I'm kind of tired of Shockwave being a tank, honestly. You can thank Transformers Prime for that, and then it kind of spiraled out of control. To be fair, though, I much prefer the tank mode rather than whatever the hell that is. That, I don't even know what that is. It's terrifying and doesn't even look like a alt mode at all. It looks like he's doing a really stupid yoga pose. To be fair, though, this guy also looks like he's doing a really stupid yoga pose, but it looks a lot more cohesive than the core class figure, I'll tell you that much. And I really do like the detail on this thing, even though that it is just the robot mode doing a silly pose, but you get to see a lot more of the detail of it kind of like being put to the sides and everything like that. It looks really cool. I also really like that the translucent chest piece here, the chest plate, looks kind of like a window or like a cockpit or something. Looks really cool. And the turret here for the tank can actually rotate, and the tip here can also move up and down. And the peg is also on a hinge joint, so if you really want to, you can kind of get it into a really kind of upward pose. It is very tight, and I don't recommend you posing the cannon with it plugged in because it's really tight, the hinge joint here, so you might actually break the peg trying to move it up and down. So I just take it off and then pose it however I want, and then it can still function perfectly well, and then you can get some really cool stuff out of that. And yeah, it looks really cool. I really like this figure. I highly recommend it. It's way better than the core class figure. And even though that I really do like the core class figure, I much prefer this guy over it because he's just so big and beefy. And the articulation, despite not having a ball joint and a bicep swivel, which are basically necessities at this point for modern Transformer figures. But other than that, it looks really, really well. Highly recommend getting this figure. So that's going to do for me, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe. I don't care what you do because what time it is. So, bye, guys.